Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalava Girivaradari Gopi Janavalava Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtatar Shata Shri Srimad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtatar Shata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, Text 46 and 47. Maitreya uvāca iti upasthīyamānaḥ asau munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ salile sva-khurākrānte upādhatā avitā avanim Maitreya uvāca.
Maitreya uvāca.
Upasthīyamāno so.
Upasthīyamāno sau.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Upādhattāvitāvanim.
Upādhattāvitāvanim.
Maitreya uvāca.
Maitreya uvāca.
Upasthīyamāno so.
Upasthīyamāno sau.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Upādhattāvitāvanim.
Upādhattāvitāvanim.
Maitreya uvāca.
Maitreya uvāca.
Upasthīyamāno so.
Upasthīyamāno sau.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Upādhattāvitāvanim.
Upādhattāvitāvanim. Maitreya uvāca.
Maitreya uvāca.
Upasthīyamāno sau.
Upasthīyamāno so.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Upādhattāvitāvanim.
Maitreya uvāca.
Upasthīyamāno sau.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ. Salile sva-khurākrānta.
Upādhattāvitāvanim.
Maitreya uvāca.
Maitreya uvāca.
Upasthīyamāno
Upasthīyamāno sau.
munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ.
salile sva-khurākrānta.
Salile sva-khurākrānta.
upādhattāvitāvanim.
Upādhattāvitāvanim. Mataji's? Maitreya uvāca. Upasthīyamāno so. Munibhir brahma-vādibhiḥ. Salile sva-khurākrānta. Upādhattāvitāvanim. Maitreya uvāca. The sage Maitreya said,
Sage Maitreya said,
Iti, thus, upasthīyamānaḥ,
Upasthīyamānaḥ,
being praised by,
being praised by
asau,
Asau,
Lord Boar,
Lord Boar,
munibhir,
munibhiḥ,
by the great sages,
by the great sages,
brahma-vādibhiḥ,
brahma-vādibhiḥ,
by the transcendentalists,
by the transcendentalists,
salile,
salile,
on the water,
on the water,
sva-khura-ākrānte,
sva-khura-ākrānte,
touched by his own hooves,
touched by his own hooves,
upādhatā,
upādhatā,
placed,
placed,
avitā,
avitā,
the maintainer,
the maintainer,
avanim,
avanim,
the earth.
the earth.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The sage Maitreya said, the Lord, being thus worshipped by all the great sages and transcendentalists, touched the earth with his hooves and placed it on the water. Purport. The earth was placed on the water by his inconceivable potency. The Lord is all-powerful, and therefore he can sustain the huge planets either on the water or in the air as he likes. The tiny human brain cannot conceive how these potencies of the Lord can act. Man can give some vague explanation of the laws by which such phenomena are made possible, but actually the tiny human brain is unable to conceive of the activities of the Lord, which are therefore called inconceivable. Yet the frog-philosophers still try to give some imaginary explanation. Sa itam bhagavan urvim vishvakshena prajapatihi rasaya lila yonitam apsunyasya yayoharihi. In this manner, the personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the maintainer of all living entities, raised the earth from within the water, and having placed it afloat on the water, he returned to his own abode. Purport. The personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, descends by his will to the material planets in his innumerable incarnations for particular purposes, and again he goes back to his own abode. When he descends, he is called an avatar, because avatar means one who descends. Neither the Lord himself nor his specific devotees who come to this earth are ordinary living entities like us. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utav Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Kruna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tirubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Dhanavirga Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadya Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're hearing of Lord Vraha saving the earth from the water. And in the first purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned how the human brain is unable to conceive of the activities of the Lord. Therefore, the Lord is called achintya. He's not perceivable to the material senses. Was that what's that? Atav Shri Krishna Namadi Nabaved Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukehi Jivado Swayam Eva Spiratyada. That's verse is often used to combat the materialists who think that you can conceive God just with your blunt material senses. But the qualities of the Lord, his names, his activities, all these different things about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his internal energies, they're not understandable to the blunt material senses, but to one who engages in his service, he can be understood. He'll reveal himself to the devotee. And that service begins with jivado, the tongue. So tasting the prasadam offered to the Lord and chanting his holy names. So by doing these activities, one's material senses become purified, and then the Lord may agree to be perceived by the spiritual senses of that person. So there's no such idea or method of seeing God by, well, can you show me God? Is he in my pocket? How come I don't see him? All of these kind of things. You're not going to find him in your pocket. But if you engage in his service by chanting his holy name, offering foodstuffs to the Lord, honoring those foodstuffs, you might find him in your house, which we see happens with the pure devotees of the Lord. So I'll get to that because Srila Prabhupada was mentioning in the purport of the next verse that about the Lord who descends as an avatar. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself descends to the material world. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvataha tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti swarjuna. And one who understands the transcendental nature of his appearance in this material world, that person can go back home, back to Godhead, to the spiritual world at the end of this lifetime when they give up this body. So the Supreme Lord, he descends, and also his associates descend. Srila Prabhupada writes, when he descends, he is called an avatar, because avatar means one who descends. Neither the Lord nor his specific devotees who come to this earth are ordinary living entities like us. So you see, that's also the mood of a pure devotee, is he's, for some reason, through his Vaishnava humility, putting himself in the same category as, he says us, which, it's inconceivable to say the word us and think also of, Srila Prabhupada and other Shaktivesh avatars that are coming to this world. But for the sake of teaching others, sometimes a pure devotee of the Lord, or a nitya siddha, one who's never been contaminated by the material energy, they may show the process of sadhana, or purifying oneself through devotional service, and becoming a pure devotee. So like this, he's saying the specific devotees who come to this earth are never ordinary living entities like us. But we understand Srila Prabhupada, he's not an ordinary living entity, nor are any of the acharyas who he's coming in the line of. So we heard in some of the previous classes about the rascal scientists and froggish philosophers that are mentioned here, and then also about some of the bogus avatars and incarnations. So I thought with this purport here, it'd be good to speak a little bit about the difference between the jivas, or conditioned living entities like us, and the avatars, or the specific devotees who come with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can see in the lives of many of the acharyas in our line that they're coming straight from the spiritual world for the purpose of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who we may have heard about a lot recently, and there's a nice lecture series on the BVKS app that has many really interesting lectures about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We can understand that this personality is coming from the spiritual world to the material world, not out of any fault, but for the sake of uplifting the living entities here and helping them return back home, back to Godhead. And even while he's here in this material world, he's still aware of his eternal spiritual identity in the spiritual world. So when we're on book distribution, we meet a lot of crazy people pretty much every day, and they have all sorts of strange things they say. But somehow or other, all of those things can relate to Krishna consciousness, and they can take the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like I've heard some people at BMSE, this Body, Mind, Spirit Expo, and some of the other events talk about seeing multi-dimensional beings when they do psychedelics or something like this. They say they see machine elves or some weird things. But the thing is, some of our acharyas, these are actual multi-dimensional beings, because they're in a whole nother dimension. They're in the spiritual world. They've got activities there, some identity there, and they know what they're doing there. And then at the same time, they're in this dimension, or this material world. So you could say, this book speaks about beings from different dimensions. But then we also understand that the conditioned living entities are really the ones that are in a different dimension as the minority, because what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is seeing and experiencing, that's the real reality. But we're in a perverted reflection in this material world. Like the main difference being in the spiritual world, Krishna is the center, and everyone is cooperating to serve Krishna, or sometimes not cooperating to serve Krishna, whatever is most pleasing to Krishna's senses. But here in this material world, we, the conditioned living entities, think that I'm the center and everything around me is for my service. And that's really ecstatically illustrated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Maybe this verse could be pulled up. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-10. This verse in the purport really shows how this idea of personal sense gratification is all pervasive in the material world due to it being a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So, tamasya nindriya pritir labo jiveta yavataha jivasya tattva jigyasa narto yascheha karmabhihi. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such a civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied with their own sense gratification, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. So we see that this is the reflection of this material world, that we're thinking, the conditioned living entities are thinking, this is all for my sense gratification. How can I serve my senses? And the Bhagavatam also illustrates that further, showing the essence of all the activities in the material world, that pumsam striyo maituni bhava metam turor mito hridaya granti mahahu ato grihak kshetra sutaptavitir janasya moho yam aham mameti. So this attraction between man and woman is the basic binding principle of this material world. And on the basis of this illusion of sex attraction, one becomes more attached to the idea of I and mine. They get attached to the body, to the home, to the relatives, everything that comes with it. And in this way, they become more entangled. The knot in the heart is tied tightly to this material world. So this is the condition of the jivas who, due to misuse of their minute independence, come to this material world. They become illusioned, trying to enjoy the senses and think in terms of I and mine. But the pure living entities who come here to lift up the conditioned living entities, they don't have any of this problem. And we saw that recently when we were reading the Mood and Mission of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was writing a letter to Tushta Krishna before he was a sannyasi. To Tushta Krishna Swami, but before he was an initiating spiritual master. And he was explaining to him that he can, by following this process and everything, he can become an initiating spiritual master in the future and make disciples, just like Srila Prabhupada is making. But one of the qualifications of a guru Srila Prabhupada gave in that letter is really simple in just one sentence. He said, you must be completely free of sex desire. So we see that's the main problem with the living entities in this material world, thinking I can enjoy sense gratification, and the peak of this sense gratification being this sex life in this material world. So it's a perverted reflection, because in the spiritual world, it's the opposite. The lowest, most degraded thing here that makes everyone suffer, it's actually the highest thing in the spiritual world, where we see Krishna's sex life is what all the devotees are facilitating, to put it in like a blunt way. So the personalities who come from that spiritual world to uplift the conditioned living entities, like us, the conditioned living entities, they are not ordinary living entities, like Srila Prabhupada says in the Purport. And that is very clear if we hear about their lives. But also sometimes they show this Vaishnava humility, or kind of take the position of a so-called ordinary living entity, just for our benefit, so we can understand where we're at and what we have to do to get out of this situation. So like Srila Prabhupada, he said in the Purport, he groups us together with him. He says, they're not ordinary living entities like us. And we see that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, also out of his Vaishnava humility, he takes this position very often. And to someone who maybe never heard of any of these great devotees, it might be confusing at first. Someone might hear what they're saying and think, okay, yeah, they're like me, or they're like us. But they're completely different. And they show that also. We can see in the writings of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there are some times where it's indicated actually what is their real position. So I'll show a few examples of that. But first, since it's more relatable to where we're at, we can see how Bhaktivinoda Thakur similarly takes this humble position that Srila Prabhupada's taking in the Purport. In one of his songs, Amara Jivana. So Srila Prabhupada explains this song really nicely. You can hear the recording of it. I'll just read a little bit of it. Amara Jivana Sada Pape Rata Nahika Punyara Lesh. This is a song sung by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Vaishnava humbleness. A Vaishnava is always meek and humble. Here, I can put it on the screen. A Vaishnava is always meek and humble. So he is describing the life of the people in general, taking himself to be one of them. He says that my life is always engaged in sinful activities, and if you try to find out, you will not find even a trace of pious activities, only sinful activities. That's really relatable, especially for any of us born pretty much anywhere in the world now. But also, especially, I know for a fact, in the West or in America, if I think of my life before Krishna consciousness, you don't really see anything related to a pious activity or even an understanding of what pious activity means. I wouldn't have known anything about that word back then. But, just from the time you wake up, even just the time you wake up is sinful according to Manu Samhita. It says if one wakes up after sunrise, so the moment you get up till your breakfast, just your whole day, sinful activities. And parera udvega diachi koto diachi jivera klesh. I am always inclined to give trouble to other living entities. That is my business. I want to see that others are suffering, and then I enjoy. Nija sukha lagi pape nahi dori. For my personal sense gratification, I can accept any kind of sinful activity. Dayahina svarta paro. I am not at all merciful, and I see only to my personal interest. Para suke duki sada mitya basi. As such, when others are suffering, I become happy, and I am always speaking lies. Even for ordinary things, I am accustomed to speaking lies. It's such a strange condition. But we might see, I can see that in my own life, and Srila Prabhupada groups all of us together. He, even out of his humility, puts himself in the category. So maybe I can say, not just me, but others too see this, all of these qualities. It's very strange that even just for a simple thing, for no reason, immediately if you answer some question to somebody, there has to be some lie. Just as an example, I remember I was distributing books with Kalki Prabhu, and someone gave a donation before this person came and took the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is usually $150. So there was an extra $50. And then a person came, and he very quickly offered $100 for the books, and I gave him the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Kalki Prabhu came, and he was like, oh, wow, he took it and gave $150? And then without even thinking, I was just like, yeah. And then like a few minutes later, I was thinking, oh my God, I just lied to this nice devotee, like what the heck? So then I told him, and he nicely kind of made fun of me after that, which was really helpful. So for no reason, just immediately speaking lies. And that's just kind of a funny example, but we can see there's probably much worse examples also. Let's see. Paraduka sukha koro. And if someone is suffering, that is very pleasant to me. Ashesha kamana hridi. And I'm sorry I'm like laughing when I'm giving examples relating to this song, because we see it's a very bad position. Chandan's laughing at me now. It's a very bad position that we're in the material world. So it's so bad that you don't know whether to laugh or to cry. It's just, it's quite an abominable position. So maybe out of some insecurity, then when we hear it sometimes, you just laugh. But as such, and if someone is suffering, that is very pleasant to me. I've got lots of desires within my heart, and I'm always angry and falsely prestigious, always puffed up with false pride. Mada mata sada vishaya mohita. I'm captivated by subject matters of sense gratification, and am almost crazy. We hear many times Srila Prabhupada explains that everyone in this material world is crazy. And he gives that example of that lawyer. Someone was being charged for murder or something like this. And a psychiatrist. He, through his psychiatry qualification, he explained to the judge that, yeah, this person, I'm seeing that he is crazy, but actually, from my studies with all these different people, I'm seeing everyone here is crazy. So that's the position of forgetting the service of Krishna to try and engage in sense gratification, and being in this position that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is describing. Everyone here is crazy. Himsa garba vibhushana. My ornaments are enviousness and false pride. Nidra lasya hata sukharye virata. I'm conquered by sleep and laziness, and I am always averse to pious activities. Akarye udyogi ami. And I am very enthusiastic to perform impious activities. We can see that pious activities usually involve someone other than ourself or our body being served. So immediately when the idea of it comes, there's some aversion. Oh no, I have to give my time or my money or something I worked hard for another person. Oh, how gross. Pratishta lagya satya archana. I always cheat others for my prestige. Lobahata sadakami. I am conquered by greediness and always lusty. Eheno durjana sajjana varjita. I'm probably pronouncing a lot of it wrong. I am so fallen and I have no association with devotees. Aparade nirantara. I am an offender always. Subhakarya shunya. In my life there is not a bit of auspicious activity. Sada narta manaha. And my mind is always attracted to something mischievous. Nana duke jara jara. Therefore, at the fag end of my life, I am almost invalid by all such sufferings. And sometimes Srila Prabhupada gives that example how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he appears millennium after millennium. What's that verse with yuge yuge? Dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanama dharmasya tadatmanam shrujamyaham. Paritranaya sadunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That the Supreme Personality of Godhead, millennium after millennium, he's appearing to save the devotees for the sake of his devotees, and to annihilate the demons, or to kill the demons. And there's many times in Srila Prabhupada's purports and letters and recordings where he says, similarly, the devotees, they're also coming to kill the demons. But he later clarifies that not killing like with weapons, like we see Krishna doing in his pastimes, because they're already dead in Kali Yuga. It's such a pitiable condition. It's like a bunch of dead people walking around. You can just see the way everyone's living it. Such an inauspicious life. They're barely alive. Yeah, it's zombie land. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the devotees, they are killing the non-devotees or the demons, not by physically killing, because what's the use? And then he also says, and you don't have the strength to do that anyways. You'll be killed. But he says the devotees, they're performing this activity that the Supreme Lord and his associates perform, killing the demons, by killing the demoniac propensity, by engaging them in the process of Krishna consciousness. You chant Hare Krishna, you follow these activities, and then their demoniac propensity is completely, it's destroyed, it's purified. So, now in my old age I have no alternative. Therefore by force I have now become very humble and meek. Bhaktivinoda Prabhure Charane Kore Dukkha Nivedana. Thus Bhaktivinoda Thakur is offering his sad statement of his life's activities at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So, we see Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's giving this example showing what is the condition of an ordinary living entity. You could say like playing the role of an ordinary living being, but also due to his perfect consciousness, his Krishna consciousness, he has this real humility. So he also, feels like this as well. So he's, even though in the end, he's saying now at the end of my life, when the body is very weak and there's all sorts of difficulty, I'm becoming humble. We know he's always actually very humble and meek, but for our benefit, he's giving this example that if one has this kind of mindset, then it should be easier for them to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead instead of trying to imitate the Supreme Personality of Godhead's position. And we can hear, when we hear about the acharyas, it's very clear that actually they're not some low-class living entity like the conditioned living entities. But we can, when we hear about them, like if we hear from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he writes in his preface to Jaiva Dharma about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he makes it very clear, even if someone wasn't to hear about them from a great devotee or a great scholar or something like this, if they just meet any of these personalities, they understand, wow, this is someone unlike anyone I've ever seen before. There's a lecture that His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj gives, speaking about the physiology of Srila Prabhupada. There's this science called, let me see what that word is. Physiognomy. The physiognomy, someone can understand by the bodily features of a personality, different things about that personality. There's auspicious features, then some personalities have inauspicious features. So we hear in the Bhagavatam when Shukadeva Goswami comes, they can understand by the way he looks that, wow, this is a extremely rare and elevated person. So in that, Maharaj reads this article analyzing that facet of Srila Prabhupada, his facial features. And in there, this devotee who wrote it explained that anyone who came in contact with Srila Prabhupada realized that this is someone unlike anyone I've ever met before. And they get into some nice details of it. Okay, I'll read some of that now. I was going to read what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but just as an example, we can see that someone who just comes in contact with these personalities, they see, wow, this is a very rare person. I can get to it later, actually, if we have time. Sorry, because it's very detailed. There's a lot there, but I just wanted to read what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is an extremely dear associate of Sri Chaitanya Chandra. In the course of time, when those who preach the desires of Chaitanya Dev had left this world to enter the Lord's eternal pastimes, the sky over Bengal slowly darkened, covered by the thick clouds of sensual enjoyment and false renunciation. The sky was covered and the world was bereft of the rays of light coming from the Sankirtan propagated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One by one, the sun, the moon, and the unlimited stars of that sky faded from view, leaving only the occasional flash of lightning to disrupt the unending darkness of ignorance. Almost 350 years after the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur came to illuminate the Gaudiya sky. So we see, as Srila Prabhupada said in the Purport, when the Lord descends, he is called an avatar because avatar means one who descends. Neither the Lord himself nor his specific devotees who come to this earth are ordinary living entities like us. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is coming from the spiritual world to illuminate the Gaudiya sky. All the great virtues are present in the body of a Vaishnava. The good qualities of Krishna gradually develop in his devotees. All these transcendental qualities are the characteristics of pure devotees, and they cannot be fully explained, but I shall try to point out some of the most important. Here, it's on the screen now. Oh. Okay, never mind, the screen thing's not working. I shall try to point out some of the most important. Devotees are always merciful. They are not bellicose. They are truthful, equal to all, faultless, generous, mild, and clean. So you see, it's the exact opposite of what this great devotee is speaking out of his humility, is the actual case. They are without material possessions, and they work for the welfare of all. They are peaceful, surrendered to Krishna, and desireless. They are meek, resolute, and completely control the 6 character flaws of lust, anger, greed, and so forth. So then why was he saying, I am always lusty? Well, again, we understand that's for our benefit. That's the position we are in as conditioned living entities who misused our independence. So by understanding that and then correcting it through the instructions that are given by these personalities, then we can come back to our purified position in service of Krishna in the spiritual world, or wherever Krishna wants his devotees to be, to serve him. They are peaceful, surrendered to Krishna, and desireless. They eat only as much as required, and are prudent, respectful, and free from false prestige. They are grave, sympathetic, friendly, poetic, expert, and silent. So that's from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita 2:22, 75 through 80. And one other quote from him. All these devotee qualities were perfectly displayed by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur throughout his life of pure devotion. The ocean of compassion, Sri Gaurahari, displayed this merciful nature to the conditioned souls in 9 different ways. The same kind of distribution of mercy is seen in the life and work of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So the Lord and his specific devotees, they come for the same purpose. And sometimes it's also revealed who those devotees are in the spiritual world, so that we can see that, okay, this isn't some personality of this world. It's not a conditioned soul or someone in any kind of illusion, but they have some situation there with Krishna, and out of their kindness, they're coming here. So we hear that example with Bhavananda Prabhu when he's speaking about his time with Srila Prabhupada, how Srila Prabhupada told him this pastime he's having in the spiritual world, where Krishna instructs Srila Prabhupada that you go to the material world and you write those books. And Srila Prabhupada doesn't want to come at first because it's a terrible place. So we get some glimpse there, like a very specific glimpse. But in Srila Prabhupada's writings, we don't hear him say, I am such and such, this personality in the spiritual world or anything like that. But in the writings of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he does actually give a very specific description of who he is in the spiritual world. It's very interesting. And so this is also mentioned in that lecture series on Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So I can just read, it's just like 4, he gives there's probably many songs that he writes that can give some indication of this, but there's one specifically called Siddhi Lalasa, and the whole song is speaking on what he does in the spiritual world, but there's just 4 or 5 stanzas that give a very specific idea. I'll just read the English translation. If it can go. So, this is in Siddhi Lalasa. This maidservant has a complexion just like lightning, and she is wearing a sari which has star-like decorations all over it. My name is Kamala Manjari. Eternally appearing to be only 12.5 years of age, I always live within the abode of Svananda Sukhada Kunj. I render the service of preparing the camphor within the assembly of Lalita Sakhi, of whom Sri Radha is the leader and the center of all their activities. And the lord of my mistress Radha is the delightful son of Nanda Maharaj, who is also the treasure of my life. I always desire to execute conjugal service similar to that which is rendered by Sri Rupa Manjari and her associates. Thus, I will certainly get utmost conviction and faith. When will this maidservant thus attain such complete spiritual perfection, living by the banks of Sri Radha Kund? I will eternally serve Radha and Krishna, and all of my previous memories will be automatically forgotten. So we can hear that he's coming from way up there to help living entities who are much down below in the gutter of the material world. And then even out of his humility, it shows them what is the condition of one here in some of his writings. And also in the books of Srila Prabhupada, he explains this position of a Shakti-avesh avatar, one who's empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to spread the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead all over the world. Can I trade the screen to somebody? This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Lila 7:11. If one saw the personal characteristics and activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one would certainly be convinced that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can ascertain this by following in the footsteps of the Shastric injunctions. This sincere study and appreciation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also applicable to his authorized devotees, and it is clearly stated in the, I gave you the wrong one. It's CC Madhya 25.9 purport. This sincere study and appreciation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also applicable to his authorized devotees, and it is clearly stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya-lila 7:11. Yeah, I'm like right at the beginning. There it is. Kali Kalera Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtana. Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tara Pravartana. In this age of Kali, real religious propaganda should induce people to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. This is possible for someone who is especially empowered by Krishna. No one can do this without being especially favored by Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments in this regard in his Anubhasya, wherein he quotes a verse from Narayana Samhita. Dwapariyar Janer Vishnu Pancharatrais tu Kevalai Kalo tu Nama Matrina Pujate Bhagavan Harihi. In Dwapara Yuga, devotees of Lord Vishnu and Krishna render devotional service according to the principles of Pancharatra. In this age of Kali, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped simply by the chanting of his names. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur then comments, without being empowered by the direct potency of Lord Krishna to fulfill his desire, and without being specifically favored by the Lord, no human being can become the spiritual master of the whole world. He certainly cannot succeed by mental concoction, which is not meant for devotees or religious people. Only an empowered personality can distribute the holy name of the Lord and enjoin all fallen souls to worship Krishna. By distributing the holy name of the Lord, he cleanses the hearts of the most fallen people. Therefore, he extinguishes the blazing fire of the material world. Not only that, he broadcasts the shining brightness of Krishna's effulgence throughout the world. Such an acharya or spiritual master should be considered non-different from Krishna. That is, he should be considered the incarnation of Lord Krishna's potency. Such a personality is Krishna Lingita Vigraha. That is, he is always embraced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Such a person is above the considerations of the Varnashram institution. He is the guru or spiritual master for the entire world. Oh, on that point of him being above the considerations of the Varnashram institution, we can see that in the way that he is able to go anywhere and everywhere to distribute Krishna consciousness and love of God all throughout the world. We see if, for example, myself or probably most people, if I'm outside of the association of devotees for maybe like 3 days, it's hard to even like chant your rounds, get up at a certain time or anything like this. But we see Srila Prabhupada, he's able to go everywhere, even in pretty treacherous situations, just on his own. We can see this is beyond the Varnashram institution. Even without the association of devotees, he can go anywhere and everywhere and give pure Krishna consciousness. So that's, because I was a little confused when I read that, but there's one example of what's going on there. He is the guru or spiritual master of the entire world, a devotee on the topmost platform, the Maha Bhagavat stage, and a Paramahamsa Thakur, a spiritual form only fit to be addressed as Paramahamsa or Thakur. Nonetheless, there are many people who are just like owls, but never open their eyes to see the sunshine. These owlish personalities are inferior to the Mayavadi sannyasis, who cannot see the brilliance of Krishna's favor upon the Maha Bhagavat devotee. They are prepared to criticize the person engaged in distributing the holy name all over the world and following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who wanted Krishna consciousness preached in every town and city. So there's a few purports where Srila Prabhupada gives this nice understanding that he's not an ordinary personality, and that only a person who's specifically empowered by Krishna could do what he did of bringing Krishna consciousness to the whole world. And one person who helped the devotees when they were acquiring one temple, I don't remember which one it was. This person, I think he was a lawyer, but he was an old man. And while he wasn't a devotee, but when he was working with the devotees, he was telling them that actually you can't fully appreciate what your spiritual master has done. Because this person who was old, he was telling them how it's impossible to do something like this in old age when everything is difficult. But we see in the Varnashram institution, one is usually enjoined to take sannyas at 50 years of age, but more specifically, it's just halfway through one's life. So when people are living like to 70 and 80, it would be a little bit before that. So halfway through one's life, it takes sannyas and preaches all over. But we see Srila Prabhupada is at the very end of his manifest appearance in this material world, and he's going all over the world nonstop. It's like 90% of the way through his appearance in this world. So it's something completely impossible for an ordinary living entity to do, but he's not an ordinary living entity, as we can understand from this purport. I guess you could say, regardless of the humility he's showing in saying that he's like us, ordinary living entities. We can understand that when, as he says just before that, when the Lord comes, he's called an avatar, and neither the Lord nor his specific devotees who come to this earth are ordinary living entities like us. Not him, but the rest of us. So those are some points on the jivas and also the avatars and Shaktivesh avatars who come. Should I end it there? Was there any correction or comment or anything? Okay. It looks like there's a minute, right? So if anyone, yes, Vishnu Chitta Prabhu.
I was reading this book, Seventh Goswami. You see how Bhaktivinoda Thakur manifested his preaching activities. And although initially in the book it just sounds like he's just bewildered or doesn't really understand, he's kind of attracted to Vaishnavism but doesn't really know, and in some ways wasn't fully appreciative of what true Vaishnavism was. When he receives the Chaitanya Charitamrita and he reads it, and then he reads the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he gives a lecture. It's one of his first kind of lectures. He speaks to an assembly of people in Orissa. And what he speaks is so amazing, so fantastic. And he goes right from the bottom, talks a lot about Jesus Christ, about how Jesus Christ asked us to love God, and then goes all the way up to Madhurya. And it is just not imaginable to think of somebody who just kind of found Krishna consciousness and got such a perfect understanding of it so quickly. I mean, right there you can just see it's very uncommon. Even though foolish people will have enough of an excuse to be bewildered by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's actions in thinking that he's an ordinary person. For the astute observer, there's enough proof to understand that this is also not normal. Even though it looks like there's a manifestation from awakening from ignorance to realization, you can just see that it was just a covering that was just cast off by the devotee when the time was right. It's like we put a coat on and then take the coat off, but it happens by the devotee's will and the will of the Supreme Lord. It's just so different the way Thakur Bhaktivinoda. That essay is just so fantastic. Just that one essay, when he's not even manifesting himself as an acharya yet. It's just that one, not essay, it was a lecture. Absolutely amazing. He explains the stages of development of love of God from Shanta, Rasa. I mean, he starts all the way from Jesus Christ. It's kind of pretty amazing. Never seen that.
Thank you. There's a nice difference that you pointed out there between the jivas and these Shaktivesh avatars, is that whenever we're praying or giving some class or something, we say Om Jnana Timirandasya, that we're born in the darkest of ignorance. And we can see that's the position of the conditioned living entities here, that this whole material world is dark. Without some added light, you don't see anything. You either need the light of the sun or electricity or fire or whatever it is, but without that, it's complete darkness. So then we are fully dependent on those personalities coming from that place that is always light, the spiritual world, as it's described in like the Brahma-samhita and other places. So when they come down, then they can actually give us that, like open our darkened eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Without that, we're, floundering in darkness. But like you said, those personalities, they are never in that condition. They can decide when to fully show that they're fully Krishna conscious. Okay, anything else? Yes, Chananacharya Prabhu.
I'm just having a thought that the Prabhu was mentioning, reading through Bhaktivinoda Thakur's pastimes, or understanding our acharyas, even our own guru, like the beauty of Sri Guru and the beauty of what he's given us. And when we forget that, you were mentioning the attraction, between male and female in this material world. Actually, there's no beauty there at all, but there's actually real beauty in Sri Guru and the service of Sri Guru and the acharyas. And to the level we can recognize that daily in our lives, every moment in our lives, to that extent we'll be attracted away from this sex desire. It's so amazing, actually. If you just, what is that? That the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you actually try to examine it, chamatkar, what's that verse? The word chamatkar is used.
Vichara pagile chitte pabe chamatkar.
Yeah.
That is the first verse. Sri Chaitanya Prabhu, Sri Chaitanya...
Mercy must be there.
Yeah, kripa. Sri Chaitanya karaho vichar, vichara kaile chitte pabe chamatkar.
Yeah. If you consider just the mercy of Sri Chaitanya, you'll simply be put in wonder. It's hard to understand. It's just, whoa, you find it quite amazing. So if we really deeply consider Sri Guru's service in our lives, we'll always say there's nothing better. Everything else is low grade, and the jiva doesn't want that. Jiva wants the highest thing. We want service to Krishna, but we have it in the form of the service to Sri Guru, and we have such great, amazing things to read about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But we forget that, and then it's like get absorbed in this, nastiness of this material world in the form of a woman and man, and so actually our position is really nasty. How you look at, if you actually examine, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if I examine myself, it's like, oh man, pity on myself. Like, what's wrong with you? Attracted to all these useless things of this material world, and then not attracted to Sri Guru and his service. Anyways, that's just...
Jai, thank you, Prabhu. Sorry, I'll end it there just because Maha Saturday. Please forgive me. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.